is going to be our first matchup, KP. VortiX versus Pegasus. I think these two players are arguably top 5 right now, just in terms of raw talent alone. Both incredibly high APM, EAPM even, incredibly strategically minded, and I think this is going to be fireworks.
Yeah, I think, watching Pegasus coming through in the last few weeks, obviously always a talented player, but I think you could agree when the game first came out, really just focused on the Greeks, right? Like, I remember watching this guy before Zeus got nerfed and that particular Minotaur rush got nerfed. He was borderline abusing it in the top 50. But now we're starting to see a more robust player, which is critical considering we're past that BO3 phase into the best of 5s, where being a one-trick pony, one Pantheon pony doesn't get you any deeper.
For sure. I mean, it's 5, best of 5. It means you need, what, to have 10 gods, 11, 12 gods unlocked, because you have 2 bans. Well, basically, you can have 6 bans against you plus your ban, and then you need 5 gods after it to fill up your roster in a way. So you've got to have the entire roster on lock, and Pegasus definitely has that. I think VortiX has also got that. He had a very tough series yesterday against Magic, but it's a different player. It's a different type of thing. We're going to be seeing Kronos versus Isis on Alfheim to kick this one off. This is a good matchup for Kronos, if I had to say so. I don't know. Lots of people harp on how good Isis is, but Kronos is a bit of a menace here.
It's also, I think this will be the pick for VortiX that almost becomes his comfortable, solid go-to, right? Like, yes, it's the last thing he drafted here, but if you think about VortiX as a player, he's this relentless aggression, right? Like, to quote a French man, a champion from another scene, he goes ape all the time, right? Like, Marine Lord always quoted him as the most aggressive player, and Kronos is one of the most aggressive gods. The Atlanteans most definitely. So I like this. It's pretty ballsy on a map like Alfheim that is historically defensive. He's looking to take an insanely aggressive note.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 types of Alfheims right now. There's a closed one and there's a really weird open one. So we'll see which one we're going to get. We're going to be getting into that game very, very shortly. Kronos versus Isis on Alfheim. Oh, I'm excited about it. Let's make it happen.
Let's get into it. Lower bracket elimination on the line. No more mistakes allowed in this Elim best of 5. In the blue, kicking this series off with the most aggressive civs for the most aggressive players. We've got Kronos being manned by Fox's VortiX.
And in the top side of the map, in the red color, playing as Isis, going to be on the defensive for a lot of this game, but it is one of the weird timing attack style civilizations in the Egyptian pantheon. Red color is Pegasus.
And it is going to be an awkward way to defend because we talked about the 2 types of particular spawns you can get in Alfheim, and we've got the dream for an aggressive player here, an open battlefield.
Yeah, this is going to be great for VortiX. He's going to be able to go into Terma. He's really, really confident with him. He's got some of the best micro out of anyone. And honestly, Egyptian, it's challenging to deal with those Terma early on in the best of times. Now, there is one strategy which I know Pegasus knows about. We'll see if he's going to go that way. But this is the Priest Siege idea for Isis. Works on an open map to some degree because your opponent can't wall you off. And you can push in, hit an Ancestors Eclipse timing with a ton of Priests, and you really hard counter those Terma. So VortiX has got to read the situation perfectly here, not go too heavy onto it. We'll see if he knows this matchup. I know he's been the victim of this strategy at least once in this tournament so far, but we'll see if he's got the answers now.
I wonder if you could also just go the Kitty Cat strat route, right? Because we talked about the fact that, you'd probably want a more defensive map against a player like VortiX with this Civ matchup. Because now it's open, you're worried that VortiX is going to send it. But in theory, you still have that powerful timing with the Cats and the Eclipse. And when you look at this spawn, compare it to a typical Alfheim, someone gets an opportunity to wall themselves in, right? They can guard themselves. So that aggression can go both ways here.
Yeah. There's lots of different options. And honestly, part of what makes Myth so great is that you can almost just decide what you want to do regardless of what the map spawn has some of the time. Just because it's you got to be so metagamey about it. Your opponent expects one thing, you do a different thing. We're seeing the Temple come forward here for VortiX, so he wants to get aggressive. It's a really, really fast advance, it seems like, for VortiX. What is that, 15 population advance? You don't see this very often.
No, and it means the Pharaoh is going to feel pretty useless in the defense here against the initial Clayman, right? Like, usually, if you have kind of mirrored timing, he can help assist in keeping you up here. But likely some idle time achieved. The upside, at least for Pegasus, is that he does have that back gold. Love the way that you've just got VortiX shuffling around the map, just trying to get every piece of info, whereas sometimes people like to just stand still with these oracles to maximize the favor.
Oh, here come the Promethean KP. He's going to be jumping in onto those villages. A very, very safe defensive play here now from Pegasus. Just going to pull into his main base. He can eat the cows if he wants to, but lots of idle time going to be caused here. VortiX does need to get damage, though.
Yeah, it's going to force an idle on the food. The gold has already been vacated, though, and this is where VortiX might actually benefit from just having the oracles a little bit more static. He's using the one there on the tower to draw fire, but I mean, on the west side here, you could have stayed under the tree line, right? You could have got maximum favor, but also you wouldn't have had to make this wider rotation that's kind of worthless right now.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say he hasn't got anything done with this, but it's the small little bits, right? What VortiX looks like he's doing, and I could be wrong about this, but I think he's going for a second town center behind this. And effectively, this early attack has just caused idle time. Now, idle time is worth something, but advancing fast is challenging to deal with as well with your own economy. Deconstruction down onto the temple, forces another temple to come up, means that Sphinx might be a little bit later to the party, but I think Pegasus is going to be okay here.
Yeah, I wonder if he could have held on a little bit longer, maybe got more like the Prometheus are going to be a little bit annoying here, but the priest already out. This is the thing, if you stopped it before the priest spawns, you feel a lot better. Because he's out here, you should eventually get contested, whittled down. But you're right, we've been seeing two styles of Kronos, right? And it's crazy, it's the same type of opening. It's always the double Promethean into relentless aggression or greed behind. And the crazy thing about, I want to say, with Kronos is he's always been strong, but I'd say there were more potent picks, especially with the Chaos builds we were seeing a few weeks ago. Kind of felt like Kronos became a bit of a sleeper pick. Everyone now picking it up because if you are able to make this move, if you are able to be the ones with the options, you put your opponent in a reactionary phase, which inherently has a habit of putting them behind.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be... This is something that I've talked to Mr. quite a bit about it, and he's like, yeah, you can go for these aggressive or greedy economic plays, but, if you put pressure onto your opponent, you make them make mistakes here. Now, Pegasus, you might say, he hasn't necessarily made any mistakes thus far, but he's off his game plan right now. He's clearly going for a fast heroic behind this, but it's not how he wanted to be going for the fast heroic. His villages are in a different spot. His armory might be a little bit later than he might like. His wood villages are a little bit later than he might like. So missing out on some upgrades potentially as well. So while VortiX does kind of hurt himself slightly by doing the fast advance time and putting that pressure on, and maybe doesn't go straight onto the economy like you could get, he has put damage onto Pegasus, and it's in a different spot than it otherwise might be, just taking everyone out of their comfort zone and making it a little bit more about maybe like in-game decision-making and in the moment rather than pre-planned kind of strategic decisions, so to speak.
I think one of the things that's quite nice here, at least from Pegasus' perspective, is that I'd say the 2TC boom doesn't really have as much value on this spawn of Alfheim, right? Like if you check that second town center, everything is forward spawning, right? So if you go for a more greedy line, you are exploitable. For example, if pressure comes here, when you think of a standard TC setup like the home ones, you can fall back to the south side. Here, you'll just find the edge of the map.
Yes, it's totally true. And this is setting up for Pegasus to do something like getting a gold star started. But, you've got gold mines on the left of the map, you've got gold mines on the right of the map. You can do a little bit of the shuffle between the two of them and keep yourself alive. But the big question really is going to be, what is VortiX doing behind this second town center? Because it kind of looks like a 2-town center fast heroic, which opens up a whole lot of new options for him.
The question is it going to cost you to get there? We've got the Sphinxes on the way. So timing looking like it's going to line up quite nicely for Pegasus. The problem is finding a value target right now. You can see actually the VortiX has set up those oracles on the flank. So a nice spread of vision without much exposed economy currently.
Yeah, so that's the big question. When you're making units in the classical age, you've got to find something to do with them. At the moment, VortiX has got everything nice and defended. The Sphinx coming in to try and find some value here, but the villagers will simply just pull back underneath that town center. He does have the Valor to use very, very shortly as well, which will keep the villagers alive. If they're getting targeted down, no problem. And even he could convert them in and just take a fight here. And there's that Valor, and the Sphinx has to retreat away.
As he used. And he min-maxed it to get as much damage back on the Sphinx as possible, so that's going to kind of slow things down a bit. We don't really have any priest nearby, so likely Pegasus doesn't want to risk this one. He would like to have to just peel it and send it all the way back.
Yeah, this like that movement from VortiX has done so much for him because he just gets so much time now. Because now he's going to the heroic age. He's going to be about what 75 seconds, a minute behind Pegasus's heroic age. So there is a lot of time right now that VortiX needs to buy to get him sorted. Now, the question is he going to go for those Contarius? Is he going to go for Arcus? He's put a lot of effort into getting into this heroic age, but he has to make a decision on what sort of units he's going to go. Great Spearman raid coming through for Pegasus at the moment. As Ancestors Eclipse going to come down really, really early here. Can you get any kills with this one, though?
Forces them to be idled up, running back towards safety, but not able to clip or grab any of them straight away. It is idle time, but realistically, you need more out of this. He sends the injured Sphinx in deep. I think that was an intentional bait, but doesn't work out for him. Does still get killed. Citizen's still able to escape. We've got a lot on the gold and now being harassed out by the mummies. He's going to force a full garrison there. So a lot of idle time being achieved with this big play, and although it has 50 seconds left, he needs to start finding these worker kills.
Yeah, there's nothing... All of this idle time, fantastic. But if you don't get any kills here, this is 2 town center. You're behind by 22 population right now. He's getting kills on the left town center, it looks like. That's going to be huge. Where's the Migdol going up for Pegasus is the big question. And he's not going for, he's going for Priest behind this. This is going to be a really, really difficult strategy to execute now after this, because this just was not the economic damage done at the moment. And I think VortiX can possibly just sit in his base for the next 5 minutes or so, muster up an army to 2 town center levels, and be completely fine here.
No, I agree. I think also, yeah, he lost a setter on the outro, right? So he's myth scaling a little bit weaker, but the reality check of this is that he still has plenty of favor gathering across the map, right, that he can achieve. It's now going to be the onus upon Pegasus to keep pushing forward, which means things like a second TC himself don't really seem realistic at this stage. I think you have to take that 40 military lead and now convert it into a siege.
Yeah, this is, it's not, there's no options for second town centers without getting some villager kills first. There is a world where you can get a whole bunch of military kills, not touch the citizens, and then get to the mythic age. Very, very small world that you're living in to make that happen, but I've seen it work time and time again. But you have to get the pressure on, you have to get really good fights happening. And VortiX, I mean, he's been a little bit greedy with those citizens. He's got back wood lines. The priests are going to put some pressure on. No siege just yet for Pegasus, which he needs to start actually pushing in. But the question is, what is VortiX really going to do? He's going for Contarius. He needs to get them out, but the Spearmen are already being made as well for Pegasus, though not very many of them out at the moment.
No, but this is a problem. There's more priests there than you'll find at a Catholic convention. The problem with that is this defensive chaos doesn't really work against them, right? Like, you're looking for that kind of counter-on-counter type unit situation. It's unlikely to be grabbable here, and even worse now with the fact the siege is already arriving.
Well, yeah, you can't use chaos on this unless you're actually going for the big fight. Because if you do, sure, the priests will back each other for a little bit, not going to do all that much damage, but then they're just going to immediately heal themselves back up. So the only answer for VortiX is get full pop, and then you can probably even sack the town center. Just don't lose any citizens. No problems there. Make sure he slaps down a mark, get some trading going onto wood and food, and then engage when he has the military lead cut down. Right now, it's very, very difficult to make a fight happen, though he's trying to as he pushes forward.
Darius, trying to right around the side. The spear's going to be there. The chaos gets activated on the entire army, but that means it's not going to last for very long here. So he needs to target down those spears as quickly as he can. Choke point is being held. A thin line of spears holding the way back. And Siege Tower, it may actually open a wider fight here. The question is it going to be wide enough? It looks like the Kataria, they have to back away, not able to clear those spears. And it looks like a loss of a fight for VortiX and an overwhelming military lead now for Pegasus.
Yeah, this was him wanting to hit that one just a little bit too early. There's really no... Like, losing buildings is bad, don't get me wrong, but losing military here means that your need to get onto that second gold mine is even more important. We do see that VortiX actually sneaking a second gold mine at the moment. This is dangerous. It's spotted by the obelisk. There's going to be priests heading over here. The villagers can do the little shoot, like the scoot around the map and just run away when the units come there, but Well, we'll see. But VortiX does have the speed advantage, so he can kind of cut reinforcements off or cut that maneuver off a little bit with those Contaris. He is starting to get to population here, though.
Marius, they are going to go in. Sphinx is intercept. Scorpion Man as well. A lot of focus fire coming in on him, so he's going to pull away. And the priests are exposed now, but the spears are seemingly being ignored. There's not many of them, but if you target the priest, it means you will eventually get wiped out by spears. Sayers and the Arcus is trying to help now, but the TC has gone down, and it feels like the exhaustion is starting to set in for the army here. VortiX barely holding that 40 pop, doesn't have a front line anymore. These priests will now trade much favorably against the remainder.
Yeah, it wasn't a terrible fight, in all honesty, for VortiX. Like, he didn't win it, but he's like getting rid of the spears, and he's got that gold mine still gathering. He's going to still have the population advantage, even though he's lost the settlement in economy, right? Mm-hmm. So he just needs to spend the resources that he's got coming in and take one more fight. But he's basically got one more fight left in him at the moment, which is going to be the challenge.
And he's getting split now. The Spearmen have arrived rather on the gold. So it's going to be a shove back there, and it means you're kind of starved when it comes to gold. Nothing in reserve behind this. The Priest army is going the wide way around to kind of assist this, but just the idle time alone, the blocker there, is going to prevent VortiX from affording that next army we talked about.
Yeah, and now VortiX has got he's got a lot of villagers on wood right now. He's got to mark it up so he can sell wood for gold and start selling it. Looks like that's what he's doing. I could be wrong, but he's getting some farms down. Okay, so like I said, he doesn't need to be on that gold mine just yet. He's got a little bit of time to play with. It's not a lot of time. It's maybe like 2 minutes of trading before it starts to get really, really bad. But he's at 137, 155 pop. He only really needs to get out another, what, 20, 40 more pop of units. So it's possible for him to get there and then take a really good fight while moving on to that gold mine and then create a competitive game here.
Great reaction by Pegasus there, though. Saw the Kentaris trying to flank, so sent a group of Spearmen there. Pretty much no Spearmen left in reserve because he noticed that VortiX pulled the entire cavalry battalion. Siege now moving on to the primary town center. That is going to force an engagement. One that's questionable whether VortiX is ready for right now. Doesn't have the favor to use any god powers here. Just has to start committing. The backstab does come in from the Kentaris. Scorpion has to pull away. Arcuses are being ignored. The priest instead focus firing upon the cavalry here. Decent chunk of them being taken out, but it seems like it simply isn't enough. And I think we are going to have an opening win for Pegasus here. An overwhelming military lead. And way too many priests for an atheist like me.
Way too many priests indeed. VortiX just kept on forcing these fights way too early. He's back on the gold, though, for the moment. So he's not giving up just yet, but he's on 0 town centers. He's still got the civilian unit lead somehow in this game. But he's about to get cut off gold, and that's going to be the end for him, most likely.
Yeah, this is the tax of the church that we're seeing right here. Literally
you must pay your taxes. We need to build a bigger church. We got too many priests.
I'll tell you, mate, if these guys were in charge of making sure you paid your taxes, Jimmy Carr wouldn't have tried it in the first place. They look vicious. Moves in again. Arcus is once again outnumbered. I mean, VortiX, he has somehow scaled his army up again a bit. But it's just those gaps, right? It's the aftermath of the fights, the length of time he has to wait to get any more gold that is simply killing him. The Scorpion Men now moving in, and just one touch, one little sliver in on those Arcuses is all it'll take to finish this one off.
Yeah, this has been a really, really well-executed game for Pegasus as VortiX does decide to tap out there. I think VortiX was in a position where making the correct decisions, he may have found himself in a favorable position, but just trying to take those fights a little bit too early and not being able to get up to full population. That's where you start really dominating the fight. Full population on those Contarius, there's not enough spears to really matter. The Contarius can come through, sweep, and take out all of the priests with the high pierce armor. But a solid start here for Pegasus. I don't know if VortiX is going to be too upset about losing that one. He's got a lot of really strong gods left in his draft.
Yeah, and you know, it's an OG strat, kind of looking like an OP strat if you're not familiar with it. We did mention that, you know, although VortiX did draft this at the end, I would say it seems kind of like a high value god to him. However, there's plenty left in the chamber. And I think if you ask most players to kind of, you know, pin their numbers, like what is the best tier gods here, a lot would probably rate Isis higher in terms of her variability in maps, right? Like just a very potent god. Also, I'm thinking, did VortiX, did he get his hands on some kind of aggressive active gods? I think he picked things like Loki, if I'm not mistaken. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Okay, so Loki, yeah, so you got Loki, Odin. So what I'm thinking here is, I usually like Isis to be removed if you're looking at heroes like Zeus, because you think about things like the curse strat, right? These powerful timings that require you to target the enemy army. It kind of feels like Pegasus actually like got a good opportunity to use Isis in this opener, because VortiX, I wouldn't say he really has that many active targeted god powers if you're looking at Age 2 and Age 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it's kind of what the god draft is going to be looking like. When we've got Savannah, we've got Odin, we've got Hades. If I'm playing this, I actually think this is a really challenging matchup for both sides. There's lots of ways you can go wrong. You've got the mobility from the Odin, and you've got the power ball of units that the Hades can make. So, I mean, there's two ways to go for Hades. There's a couple of ways to go for Odin. We might see a whole bunch of Minotaur. We might see a whole bunch of Cyclops. I don't know, KP. Who are you taking in this one?
I'm kind of liking the Hades pick. I've been seeing like Hades in a new light recently, right? Especially maybe
Yep.
if we see the greedy opening, which I think you can kind of get away with up against Odin, because it feels like you're going to be playing defensive in your base anyway. So going for the vaults isn't necessarily a terrible idea here. Maybe just play a little bit more eco, stay hunkered down. I'd expect Odin just to try and go into the raiding cavalry to begin with, right? And then I think the weird thing about Hades is, like, compare it to some gods, what they want, they go for straight away, right? Like Poseidon, you want cavalry, you go for cavalry straight away. Usually with Hades, like, obviously what you really, really want, deep as the hearts, is mass archers. But you never want to go for it first. So, like, being forced to counter raiding cavalry, things like Hoplite as an opener, and then gradually getting into your true comp, I could see this working pretty well for Pegasus.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting one for me because Odin and Norse, like you say, you want to go for the raiding cavalry first. But if you know what your opponent wants to do, then you can just counter that before it starts to happen. So the question is there maybe a meta game that exists to kind of play around, like my opponent knows that I want to do this, so he's going to do that, so I'm going to do this type thing. And I have this feeling that there's this world where you go Freya as Odin, you get mass Hersa and throwing Axeman to kick the game off, so you deal with the myth units and the hoplites. And then the Hades player goes, "Oh damn, I've started with the wrong thing," and then you're one step ahead of the curve for the rest of the game. Now, I don't know if it works or not. I'm thinking out loud here. That's all.
What you're doing the like I always the classic metaphor I use for it is you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Right?
That's
You
right.
activate my trap card, activate your trap card, activate my trap card, and like you're exhausted at the end. You're just trying to skip towards the end and be like, look, just let me play the black hole, right? So I like that idea. Something that also works well for Odin on the aggressive presence is that he will have things like access to the hunt, which he performs better on than other civs, right? So like you leverage that, then the hidden information. I mean, there is a world in which Pegasus does just trip up, simplifying the process too much. But let's find out. It's time to hop in to map number 2 of this lower bracket series. The first, an interesting one, and the second, we're going to be kicking this one off with Fox's VortiX on Odin in the blue.
And in the red, Pegasus currently 1-0 in the series. He's got all the momentum right now. He's playing as Hades.
Yeah. Now, the question is whether he's going to have the momentum coming out of the gates, because the funny thing is he has the momentum in the series, but in game 1, he wasn't the one that began with that momentum. If you remember that open with the aggressive play from VortiX that was swatted away, there's an interesting mantra in RTSs, which is attacking is easier, but when you're a master, defending is an advantage. So curious to see if Pegasus is the master Greek we've known him to be in the past.
Well, I mean, he's got so many years of experience playing Zeus. Hades is very similar in one style. Zeus has got kind of known for 2 styles, right? He's got the Athena with the Hoplite Toxote kind of idea, and he's also got the Centaur Hippias kind of style attached. Hades doesn't have that Hippias Centaur style because it doesn't have access to Hermes. But Pegasus is going to be very, very aware that he can go for Hoplites, he can go for Toxday, he can go for Minotaur here, he can go for Cyclops here, he can do whatever he wants with regards to that. We do see something very, very interesting here from Pegasus. A little bit of information in the build order. He's going for Fast Vault of Erebus, fastest temple he can get out right now, and he's skipping the storehouse to get it up even faster. This will give him a big, big boost, and I expect to see him going for a one town center play with this type of opening.
Yeah, we talked about this in the pregame, the potential for this to come out, because you are expecting VortiX to be the aggressive party. So I think from my perspective, if you're playing Odin to get up against this, especially when you consider you're going to have to deal with the defensive god powers, right? That are just going to make it very hard to breach Hades. I would say the best approach for VortiX, probably just play onto the flank resources, make sure you're always on the hunt for the better gathering rates, and possibly just try to rush into Age 3 here, right? Because we've seen how difficult it can be if you want to go 1TC yourself to break these turtling Hades players.
Yeah, you don't want to be really going into the main base all too much. Like, you can rush in with some raiding cavalry if there's not really anything there, if you catch your opponent out. As soon as he's got some units in his main base, it gets really, really challenging. Watchtowers, sentinels, all that stuff is tough. I think you're onto something 100%. When your opponent goes for these sort of greedier openings, grabbing up those special technologies, advancing a little bit later, your best bet with a lot of civs is just to move onto your forward resources nice and early. Save your back resources. You can see on the map there's back hunt in the south corner for VortiX. Doesn't need to grab that straight away. He can go to the east and be completely fine to start with, and then later move back to that back hunt and kind of avoid any sort of mid-game timings that Pegasus might be trying to go for. Ares is the god of choice here for Pegasus, KP. We're going to see some Cyclops. Yes! Finally!
Oh my god, finally. Dude, I feel like I've been waiting for this for so long. No, to me, yeah, Minotaur's, I don't want to say easy to execute, but easier to execute. But like at a high skill level, especially if you're against a civ that might blob you, Cyclopses are incredible for that ability to pick up and essentially play bowling with their victims.
Oh yeah, Cyclops they're really, really good. They can, if your opponent's got that Archer Ball, which we see time and time again, you can even get an Archer Ball with Norse kind of constructed with throw in action, which can be really, really strong as well. But if they've got any amount of Archer Ball going, you just grab 3 Cyclops with Will of Kronos, the upgrade for him, making them into those Elder Cyclops. 3 Cyclops, throw a unit at them, and they can all die. So it's basically like the Mangonel of Age of Mythology at the moment.
Yeah, I like that most civs have that, right? For the Norse, it's usually going to be having the hill trolls, right? Just lob the rocks. We've seen how that can turn late game situations when things get really dire. But curious to see if he is going to try to invest. I mentioned this idea of Age 3. What I really like is the thought of just playing into Njord here, right? Like if you know your opponent is likely to play into archers as time goes on while hunkering down, Njord's going to be really effective for that walking woods, because you know you're going to have to deal with all these static defenses, and of course, they don't really care about all these arrows being shot into them. I mean, they are already, in a way, giant arrows, right? They're made of wood. Both of them are. It counts.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think Njord is good for so many different reasons against Hades. You get the ring giver tech for Jarls, you get that mountain giant to tank up, you got the walking woods to pressure a defendable position. You've got some synergy with Freya getting that thundering hooves tech to boost your cavalry. So yeah, you can get some really, really nice counters started here for VortiX, but it's a different type of game here that Pegasus is going for. Pegasus doesn't want to put any pressure on. He just wants to sit in his base, take 0 damage, and muster up a death ball. That's what he's going for. This is a death ball comp. Archers, Cyclops, Heroic Age. Let's see if we can make it happen, and if VortiX has got the answers here.
Now, the interesting thing is if he does reach that critical mass on the death ball, you might actually see Skadi just get forced because VortiX won't have anything to reset the fight. So, like, there is an interesting dynamic that could get Pegasus a very easy win, because Skadi may be forced, but it buys you time. It doesn't win you a fight.
No, I mean, there is an idea behind, like, if you have Frost Giants, technically, you said Forest Fire coming down. Not going to do all too much. But yeah, there is technically Frost Giants that can kind of one-hit, so to speak, a Cyclops, because they freeze it, and then it's dead. It can't do anything. But getting out the Frost Giants and keeping them alive against those heroes of Greek, or dealing with the heroes as well, it's a challenge. So Yeah, I'm not even sure if that's the way to go. If he has to go that way, it's going to be a tough one.
It's also the favor spam requirements, right? Like if your opponent's going for a death ball, it's kind of awkward as Norse because you're not getting that trickle you're looking for, but this could be a good start. Doesn't
Yeah,
care for Cyclops. Did anyone leave this horse behind? Here, have it back.
He didn't really get any. It's fine.
No,
he got a village, killed a little bit damage, and got out of there. Yeah, nice. That's
I
great.
would
Good
also
raid there.
give I'd give that raiding cav a 7 out of 10 on the landing. You know, I've seen better at the Olympics, but not bad. Achilles found as well.
A couple of front flips.
I mean, the fact he kept rolling so close to the floor is the part that flabbergasts me. Can we get a surround? We might be able to here. That's plenty of cavalry. So yeah, gonna have to out micro him here. Unfortunately, the main comes in, so it looks like Pegasus can end up losing Achilles, an expensive unit to be throwing away like this.
Yeah, solid control there from VortiX. You can't be sending out your Achilles like that against the speed of those raiding cavalry. But Pegasus gets information from that. Expensive information, but information. He sees all the raiding cavalry. Doesn't know this town center is coming up just now, but you might be able to take a little guess on what's going on. But there's the Cyclops. There's the Will of Kronos. Elder Cyclops, going to be strong. Picks it up. He could throw the thing into his main base if he wants to and maybe actually get a kill there, but decides to toss it back to the army.
8 out of 10 on that one. Landon looked a lot better. Didn't kind of flounder around like a fish. But yeah, I think the problem here is he may suspect the TC, but we talked about this issue of rushing to bulk archers, right? And how it can backfire, especially when you're up against cavalry like this. When you look at the Cyclops count as well, it's not really impressing. So can't help but feel that I'm leaning towards VortiX here. This TC game is looking a lot better than the first.
Yeah, I mean, he's got all the momentum in this game currently because he's got the units out on the map, he's got everything, but this is just the way that Pegasus wants to play it. He's got Apollo coming through. He's got the Pegasus out. We've actually seen this already in the qualifiers. There was a game, I believe it was Recon versus Soup, and Soup went for this strategy against Recon's Loki, and I think the difference here is that VortiX is going to have 2 town centers. He's going to be able to move around the map a little bit more. He's got a decent amount of Herser out as well as raiding cavalry. So long as he micros this fight well, when it actually comes through, he's going to be in for a good time here. I want to see him get that Rumnir upgrade as well, make those Herser a little bit stronger, such that he can actually survive the Toxote Ball and take out those Cyclops.
Okay, and here comes the Skadi. So he did go that way in the end. I don't mind this against the Underworld play, right? Like, you can just block him out. If you actually bait him away from the teleportation, you can just freeze the army and then get rid of the retreat. So pretty interesting layer of strategy here, but it does require succinct timing from VortiX. You're right.
Skadi is the god. I mean, I do think that Njord has got a lot more potential here, but Skadi is like the one that makes you feel safe, right? Mm-hmm. You have it. At least you've got an answer with Frost Giants. If things go if things aren't going quite so good, you take a fire. You can make a whole bunch of Frost Giants, and then you can freeze the Cyclops and just take them out of the equation completely. But you're missing out on those big Jarls, which just don't die to archers at all.
Yeah, and right now, I'm wondering, you can see that VortiX is trying to get a little bit extra damage done. The problem he has here is Age Freeze upon us, and you can see the gold is only half tapped, right? So Pegasus, he's still got some time before he needs to move with urgency. This is really important for getting that bulky front line of Cyclopses up. And it's unfortunate for VortiX because now you have to be starting to feel a little bit of pressure, right? Like, you are hoping your opponent will start getting a bit risky with his economy right now. That's where the raiding cavalry tends to pay off best.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. The other thing, right, is when he goes for this underworld, sometimes you see people trying to go for like counter attacks. But when there's an underworld there, you could just jump from the main base to your opponent's main base and back to your main base, and there's no weaknesses. And the other thing we haven't really talked about is while the Cyclops is amazing at taking out human units, taking out balls of units, it also has a lot of crush damage. It's got 24 crush damage. That'll erase the Norse buildings.
He's a battering ram in his own right. But one interesting thing here, you mentioned the whack-a-mole strat. It is good, but it comes down to the use of that freeze, right? Like, if you actually, this is an interesting thing you can do in this matchup, is if you see your opponent goes for the trade in your base, frost them in your base, and then you can dive theirs, right? Like, you're able to get an eco trade and then shift everything away from your primary.
Yeah, there was I don't know if it's possible in Retold. I don't think I've seen it yet, but there was a kind of mechanic in Legacy with freeze, with frost and underworld, where you could actually dodge the frost if you time it correctly. We see the underworld coming through. Will we see it happen or not is the big question.
He's also in trouble. And there it is. There's the freeze.
Too quick. Too quick. Not possible.
He comes back, though. He's came back. So he's going to try to demolish the underworld and then take the fight here. This is the other option. And considering production is now on his side, if this army gets wiped, Pegasus could be in mortal peril here.
Yeah, this is a huge amount of population advantage for VortiX. But does it matter or not is the big question. Does it matter or not? These Cyclops are going to be really, really strong. And the Toxotes, I don't know. We'll have to. We got 15 seconds to kind of wait and see here, KP.
I feel like there's not enough hearse here. This might be problematic. And also, that hill fort is not going up quick enough. He gave up on it because of the pestilence here, right? Wouldn't be able to operate for another 25 seconds. Meanwhile, the frost is going to run out in 2. So that's 20 seconds to fight before he'd even be able to use the defenses. But here we go. Stuck in the choke point. Unable to escape here. But the Cyclops, they're not attacking right now. They get a few dwarfs on the backside. But really, you need the kills on the military, not just on the eco. So, swarms him to the south. A lot of the army is just getting erased here. It looks like the Myth units clustered up like this may have done Pegasus a better service than it done VortiX.
Yeah, that kind of went about as expected there. You are totally right. Not enough heroes at all as the Cyclops just dominate everything. Wow. And VortiX says, I'm out of here.
Ooh, in a game of Myth, you need your heroes and simply not enough there. VortiX, you know, this comes back to the thought of what I was talking about. Instead of attacking that army, what if he was already in position? What if he just dove the main, done damage there? I mean, raiding cavalry on that count should have got several eco kills at least, might have even been able to take down the defenses. And also, on top of that, you could have just dove into the enemy's base and deleted the safe underworld, right? So even after they unfreeze, sure, they can wreak havoc on your economy, but you've got double the villager count. Like, in theory, you can afford those trades, but can't fault him at all. I mean, Pegasus, no panic. I mean, he couldn't have panic if he wanted, boy, right? Like, his only choice from that position was to fight.
Exactly. And, like, that's exactly right. Pegasus needed to take a fight there. He was falling behind on economy. VortiX didn't have to. There's other gold mines on the map he could have gone to. He could have gone, all right, I'm going to kill the underworld. I'm going to move my dwarfs to the right side. I'm going to pull back, wait for this pestilence to go down. I'll sack some buildings, no worries. We'll get out some more goatee, and then we'll take the fight a touch later when we've got like another 10 heroes in my army to deal with the 16 billion Cyclops that Pegasus was making. And maybe that would have been the difference. But yeah, bunching up onto one spot, Cyclops do area of effect damage. And you saw the raiding cavalry, they just get absolutely annihilated. Everything gets annihilated by those Cyclops on that spot, but except for heroes. And yeah, that's what VortiX was missing.
I mean, the crazy part is at first, you saw it start the fight, right? He kind of peeled the raiding cav back, almost like he was aware of what was going to happen before realizing, oh, I don't have a front line here. I have no way of actually keeping him trapped. So, yeah, a bit of a brutal one. And, you know, with the way he got in his god powers, he had that freeze, but he didn't have anything in there that could have maybe, you know, utilized that small choke point. So, awkward series now. I mean, you know, you look back a few weeks, everyone's talking about VortiX as potentially one of the kings, right? His route to improvement, his rate of improvement was insane in a lot of people's eyes. Yeah. Pegasus, we talked about him up in his game, but I feel like it almost seems like a combo of the two, right? Like Pegasus is playing phenomenally well, but VortiX, we talked about the first game kind of getting caught off guard by the strat. This second game, the way he was caught off guard, it's almost like he hasn't had enough time to practice that particular matchup, that particular situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no secret about Cyclops, I don't think. If you've been paying attention to anything in terms of pro scene, there's even in content creation world, we've seen the Cyclops being very, very effective in a lot of different ways. So to say that VortiX didn't know that existed, is that strat didn't exist, I think would be, I don't think that's the case. I just think that he maybe overestimated his position there, which is very easy to do. Or maybe overestimated how many heroes he had. I'm not sure. But we've got a new game coming. We got a new chance here for VortiX. But KP, slight bit of history here. VortiX played this matchup. Wait, no, Pegasus played this matchup against Recon not 2 or 3 weeks ago in a smaller tournament. and he beat Recon there. So
Okay.
Zeus versus Gaia.
Yeah. Well, Zeus
Vortex is a
usually
different type of Gaia player, though.
yes. Like it's weird to say because guys, historically been known as the defensive Civ, but we've seen it prove to be more aggressive these days. We're going to have to find out which way he wants to utilize it. It's time to hop into game number 3 to see if we can get a longer series because this one's just feeling a little bit too short. So hoping to extend his life in this tournament, fighting for his tournament life in the lower bracket. We've got Fox's VortiX in the blue on Gaia.
In the red, on his main Civ. Up 2-0. He is playing as Zeus, and his name is Pegasus.
Oh, and what a map to get it as well. Yeah, this is one of the type of maps where Zeus feels pretty content, right? It's not quite your Anatolia, but Kerlaugar having that similar effect. If your opponent tries to play into water units, you can just bolt down the first one and then build an edge here. So curious to see how VortiX wants to approach this, because we were mentioning just before we hopped into game, he's not your average Gaia player.
Yeah, he is not your average Gaia player at all. And recently we have been seeing, especially with recent buffs to Gaia, we've been seeing Gaia players getting really, really good with not just their mana placement, which pushes Lush out onto the map, but also building economic guilds.
Mhm.
So for those of you still trying to catch up on how these gods work, Gaia, unique ability, gets Gaia Lush, gets 1 HP regen on that from base. There's an upgrade for Gaia called Channels, which then also gives you Zerg-like movement speed on the Lush. And then on top of that, you've got economic guilds, which kind of work like the little, I can't remember what they're called. It's been so long since I played StarCraft 2. The little tumors or whatever, can move them out.
The cyst things, or are you talking about the ones that deploy
that's the
them?
one.
Yeah, the cysts. I think it's tumors. I can't remember. I forget. It's been a while for SC2 for me too.
Yeah, so there's some pretty crazy amount of speed and map control you can get with that with Gaia, especially with those Terma and especially with VortiX's micro. And then even on top of that, once he gets into Arcus, if he's still on that Lush, you get the Arcus move speed plus the range. They're almost become like mini chariot archers when they're running around on that Gaia Lush. Creep tumors. Let's go, chat.
Yeah, creep tumors. There we go. We're testing. We knew this one. It's also not just from the movement speed, right? It's like down the line. It's the sustainability you get from it as well, right? Like I think it's proved that Gaia isn't as defensive as we once thought. I think it's just obviously when you look at her powers, the fact she can build her own tree lines to protect herself, she's always been seen that way. So kind of curious how Pegasus wants to address this, because you mentioned that strategy. When I'm looking at a player like VortiX, I'm thinking that strategy. Think game 1, think game 2. Every step of the way, this guy is looking for a way to spill your blood.
Yeah. I mean, Pegasus is like keys to success here is to not try and engage the Terma on VortiX's terms. You got to try and force the fight when you want the fight to happen. Otherwise, you're just going to get kited around the map. So things like underworld timings, things like getting yourself maybe Spirited Charge, Thracian Horses, Cavalry to actually push some like movement speed back in your direction. Not sure what Pegasus is going to go for, but he knows this matchup inside and out. So the question is, how well does VortiX know the matchup?
There we go. Athena on the way. So wondering, VortiX, is there something unorthodox you could do here? Because we're probably just going to be getting Oceanus, right? Like, I don't think... Have we had a single Leto game so far? I don't think so.
My brain is blanking. I think we have seen maybe Kavoth trying Leto. Two Leto games. I think we saw Kavoth go Leto against Mr.
I think I briefly remember that, but we didn't get to Mass Automaton Sage at all, right? Like, which is, in theory, if you can find the blobbing, it's not a bad idea. But yeah, this guy can be Oceanus, right? Like, we've got the awkward water element there, the potency as well. This also does alleviate some concerns if you're up against things like a myth spam here from Zeus. Hard to do these days, but feasible. And if that does happen, you do have those slows, those maims that are incredibly effective against small groups of units.
Yeah, well, Classical Age coming in now. Oceanus was actually the decision for VortiX, and we already see military academies coming on. We haven't talked about it just yet, but the map is Kerlaugar, and the big unique part about Kerlaugar is these rivers are shallows, right? So you can just run on. You don't have to build navy. You can just run on with human units. You can build some navy if you like, but you can just go on raid fishing ships, and they're out in the open. You can take them out straight away. There's no base there to defend it. Sure, you can garrison in the docks, but the docks won't fire back against human units there. So we're going to see Pegasus going straight for that fishing line with the Minotaur, with those hoplites, but Caladri's going to come through. It's going to be a little bit challenging here. Servant also out for VortiX.
Yeah, so he needs a unit now to heal. That's where this can really actually work out for him in the fight against the Minotaur. You do have decent movement speed, so you can actually just kite away from the hero indefinitely, and the Caladria is here to assist. But, I mean, right now what I'm seeing is one player has myth units, the other has heroes. This is not a good way to try and hold this for VortiX.
No, and I don't think... Has he thrown down any military buildings yet? It doesn't look like he's going for a town center. He's going for a town center, KP. This is very, very different, and this will play into Pegasus's aggression quite a bit because he's just going to lose all the water. And beyond that, the natural progression here for Pegasus is just to get to the heroic age and then go for a gold staff. There's gold mines all over the map, though, so it's not a simple gold staff to come through. But this is going to be another situation where VortiX, the player who's the aggressive player, will be on the defensive in this game.
Hold up. Carnivore into bowl. So it looks like he did actually get a ship out to try and fight back. However, he's not really running away quick enough. So the army is catching up. Nice heal there. So Caladria able to save the day. Does actually cut the Minotaur from the group. So might try to poke back against the heroes. But it looks like VortiX's intent is generally just to try and fight Navy into land here. Can work in the right situations, but can also prove difficult if you're overwhelmed. And if we're bulking in one location, which that will force, there's still things like the restoration that could just give Pegasus an overwhelming edge.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Pegasus, he doesn't know that this town center is up, but he's going to see this lush on the map, and that gives away that it's there. He sees the lush, right? Or maybe he doesn't, I'm not sure.
I mean, it kind of stands out against the white, you know? Like,
well, yes. And you see it on the minimap as well, right? Yeah.
So we'll know about this. He's poking down to deal with the backup dock. Once that's gone, he can just converge on the secondary town center. Now, in theory, this could be part of the plan for VortiX, right? Not huffing the opium, but more the case that if you're attacking to the west, you're not attacking the east where he actually has gold. And we can see by the way that VortiX is stockpiling, this looks like it's going to be an age-free play.
Wow, this is insanely greedy, but he's making it work because he's actually forcing the units to fight these navy the navy of VortiX here, and that just means he's not getting touched anywhere else. So sure, he loses what, 9 fishing ships? That's nothing. That honestly is not that big of a deal. He's going to be able to get to the third age. He's going to be able to get Arcus out, and that gives him a pretty nice counter to these hoplites. But Pegasus, he's aggressive. He's going to see no military, and he's just going to say, I'm just going to go straight up to your town center. Hoplites of Zeus get that bonus damage versus buildings, and those buildings aren't going to last very long.
Going for the pop lock. Back-to-back mana is an easy target for him as well. It's hilarious, right? That fishing boat pull, it was almost like VortiX like, yeah, please chase me across map. Pegasus immediately alarm bells were going off about it. So he's going to dive underneath the town center. Citizens forced to garrison here. The Millers have been heroed up, but they're not attacking when they need to. The Carnivore is going to get spawned, and there isn't a vault to deal with that. So we'll have to shift the hero units around to quickly clear that up. Restoration is going to be popped. A lot of damage onto the primary TC here. The Carnivora has been finished off, and I actually think this TC is going to get finished off as well. The Citizens are trying to save the day, but the Minotaur shuffling around, finally blocked out by the Mimillos. Health is low. Looks like he's also targeting down the Caladria, so no heal, no debuff coming through there. More Citizens being lost, and that is town center down. VortiX about to be stuck in a corner with no gold.
No gold at all. He's also, I mean, he has to fight with Citizens now. These hoplites are strong. They've not only have they got medium upgrades, they've also got Sarissa. They've also got that Athenian shield as well. So it's just like all of these Murmillo are just going to get absolutely massacred here.
Yeah, like this looks brain dead to just watch as it's practically just Hoplite being spammed. But folks, like the elegance with which he executed this entire series and this game cannot be stated enough. It is going to be a 3-0. Fox's VortiX, one of the favorites to go deep, will be eliminated, and Pegasus continues deeper in the lower bracket run.
I mean, this was just as solid execution as it gets. VortiX here just disrespected Zeus to the nth degree in this game. Zeus is you should know Zeus. If you don't have anything there, he has siege weapons in the classical age. Hoplites just burn through everything. You've got to have some units out to defend. And VortiX, he realized what was happening too late. He got a couple of Murmillos, but a couple of Murmillos are just not going to cut it against Restoration and a bunch of Hoplites with Minotaurs to boot. 3-0 KP. What a dominating series from Pegasus.
I mean, in some ways, I feel like VortiX was trying to debate Pegasus like he's a fat kid looking at candy here, right? Like, he shows him the shiny bauble once. He shows him the dock, kill the dock. Shows him the second TC. Please come kill the TC. You can see what the intent is. We talked about it for VortiX. He's trying to sneak that age free for a recovery arc. But the problem is, I don't want to say he didn't give Pegasus enough credit, but his game strategy seemed to rely more on his opponent's foolishness, right? To follow the trickle of treats rather than go for where these things have been made. So great read by Pegasus not to take the bait at all. Barely any time wasted on the side distractions there. And as a result, it gets him a very swift 3-0, which